You're listening to continuing coverage in the Las Vegas reporter murder trial of Robert Tellez from the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today. Now, back to the courtroom.
Mr. Dressage.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Please be seated. Please come to order. Court is now in session.
Okay, good morning. Does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel? Yes, Your Honor. And the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, is Detective Mogg here? He's outside. All right, I'll start so we can bring the witness back in and Mr. Prosecutors can begin his cross-examination. Yeah. Let's step in. Oh, that big. Okay. That one still works? Okay.
Second call.
Mr. Mogg, we're going to re-swear you in, okay? You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I do.
You may be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
Clifford, C-L-I-F-F-O-R-D, Mogg, M-O-G-G.
Thank you. Good morning, Detective Mogg.
Morning, Mr. Graskovich.
And we'll stop right there. It's obviously not a detective. I know old habits die hard. You've since retired, and now you're a private investigator. Very much.
I'm not a private investigator. I'm
Private
a consultant.
consultant.
Correct.
Fair. All right. Turning your attention to your testimony at the end of yesterday, the locations of interest, and this was your slide that I'm referring to. I believe it's slide 7. You were primarily focused on this 5.3 mile trip, give or take, between Mr. Garman's residence and the residence belonging to Mr. Tellez, correct?
That's an approximation.
Okay. How many neighborhoods or designated neighborhoods are within, just along this route, this 5.3 mile distance?
Numerous.
Fair to say hundreds.
I wouldn't know if it was hundreds, but there's numerous.
You had given testimony towards the end of the day yesterday that you had driven through Mr. Tellez's neighborhood, correct?
I did.
Looking for another Denali?
Examining the area, looking for vehicles, correct.
And what other vehicles would you be looking for other than a red Denali?
We were advised that Mr. Tellez also had 2 other vehicles. I believe one is a BMW, the other one was a Tesla. And so we drove the area. I believe at the time that I drove through, I can't recall if both the BMW, the Tesla, and the Tahoe were at his residence or not, but those were the vehicles we knew that he had access to.
Okay, and in reference to this 5.3 mile route, which you had reviewed approximately 20 cameras on, did you review that route for the BMW?
No, we did not.
Did you review that route for the Tesla?
We did not.
So then back to Mr. Tellez's neighborhood. You'd agree with me that when you drove through Mr. Tellez's neighborhood, you were looking for a red Denali similar to his?
I was looking for all the vehicles that were registered to him.
Approximately how many houses were in his specific neighborhood?
Rough guess, maybe 100-ish. It's kind of a looped neighborhood.
Do you recall the name of the neighborhood?
I do not.
Do you recall the subdivision to which this neighborhood belonged?
I can't recall off the top of my head the name of the subdivision.
Do you recall whether or not it was in, let's say, Lake Las Vegas, Piccoli Ranch, Summerlin?
I believe it might have been Piccoli Ranch area. That's what's right there on Charleston.
Are you aware of what, or any HOAs that had jurisdiction, assuming there was, over this neighborhood?
I'm not.
You had given testimony concerning, and I'll flip through so we can all see. It's your slide 15. (9:10), and you had given testimony yesterday at about 4:12 p.m. that you had seen this red Denali entering this area near where Mr. Tellis lived, correct?
At approximately 9:10 in the morning, that's correct.
And just so we're clear, at 9:10 from this camera that it was 9601 Red Hills Drive, basically the Piggott Elementary School, you saw the Denali arriving in the neighborhood, not specifically to Mr. Tellis's house, but the area, correct?
It drove into the neighborhood where Mr. Tejas lives.
And he was arriving, assuming, and you know, that's again too, we don't know who was driving, do we?
That's correct.
Throughout your testimony yesterday, you repeatedly said he, the driver, he. We don't know, all things being you, whether it was a he or a she, do we?
I'm fairly confident it was a male.
Okay, but you didn't know. You don't know. You can't testify today whether it was a male or a female, can you?
Not positively.
But back to this arrival. Whoever's driving this Denali at 9:10:18 DVR time on September 2nd, 2022, do you know where that Denali was arriving from, or where its place of origin is from?
Well, I looked at phone records from Mr. Tejas, and I know that earlier in the morning, previous to 9:10, he was down in the area of, I believe it was Desert Inn and Durango. There's a school down there in that neighborhood.
Okay. But again, not based upon any captures from any ring cams, school cams, gas station cams. That's based upon his cell phone data, correct?
That's correct. The camera at his residence did not record, and there wasn't anything on the ring camera of evidentiary value.
And we'll get to that, but just so we're clear though, as far as where this vehicle was, we don't know, do we? We have no records concerning that red Denali prior to 9:10 a.m.
That's correct.
We don't know the location of this red Denali on September 1st, the day before, do we?
I do not.
And we don't know the location of this red Denali following, let's say, 9/3, do we?
I believe there were surveillance units set up on that vehicle at some point after 9/2, but I don't recall the exact date.
Let me ask you this. Are you aware of Mr. Tellis being under surveillance prior to this date in question, September 2nd, 2022?
No.
At this point in time, you worked with the homicide unit?
That's correct.
So you were unaware of what other involvement, if any other units may have had concerning details concerning Mr. Tellis?
I know there were other units in the Metropolitan Police Department that were involved in an investigation concerning Mr. Tejas, but I don't know the details concerning that investigation.
Are you aware of a surveillance detail that had been focused on Mr. Tellis on the days preceding this killing of Mr. Garum?
I am not.
Are you aware that he was subject to surveillance on the day of this killing of Mr. Gehring?
I am not.
The next slide I'd like you to turn your attention to is, let's see, we'll go here. It's at 9:12. This is where you discussed roughly the same time Mr. Gehring is leaving the taco shop. Again, you'd said that the time was wrong in this, correct?
That's correct. The clock time on the DVR is wrong. I believe this is, I'd have to go back and look at the previous slide, but probably somewhere around 9:14 in the morning.
Okay, and you were shown a receipt by Mr. Hamner concerning a receipt.
I don't think I was shown a receipt.
Okay, was there any discussion with you and Mr. Hamner concerning your receipt from Roberto's Taco Shop on the morning in question?
No, I know that one existed. That's how we ended up going there. That was found during a search of Mr. Gurman's residence. And so that's one of the reasons that we went to the taco shop, is to follow up on the time of that receipt. And I believe, if memory serves me correctly, the time on the receipt was about 9:04.
And are you aware of that receipt and the timestamp on the receipt being accurate, or is it just an assumption that it was?
Based on the adjusted time on the DVR, I think the time was pretty accurate, but I can't testify that it absolutely was accurate.
All right. Now moving on. This is a 9/12/32. This is from the same 906 Red Hills Drive, the Piggott Elementary, correct?
Yes, sir.
And your testimony yesterday was at this time we see this Denali leaving this area, correct?
Yes, sir.
But just so we're clear, the last point of either seeing this vehicle arriving or leaving, this is about as close as we get to the Tellis residence, correct?
It is.
But still, we have a distance, don't we? I mean, it's not right around the corner, but I mean, there's a distance between this camera and Mr. Tellis's home.
Where I lose track of the Denali as it heads north, it's right around the corner for Mr. Tejas' residence.
And, you know, since we're on the subject, I'll just address this right now. This surveillance camera, the Ring camera at Mr. Tellis's home, security cameras. It's your testimony that you could not find any video from that day, correct?
That's correct. If any video would have been recovered, it would have been provided to me so that I could have used it in my PowerPoint. I know that detectives at the scene who were executing the search warrant there, in addition to myself, requested that our digital forensics lab come out and examine the DVR. I don't know what the results of that examination are.
So you're not able to give testimony whether it was cloud-based or not?
I am not.
You're not aware of whether the passcode had been given to it and followed through?
All I know is that the digital forensics detectives came out, and they're the ones that examined the system.
So they would know in reference to that system versus you, fair to say?
Yes, sir.
And you're not aware of when any security system may have been installed, whether it was the day before on the Tellis residence already?
I am not.
Are you aware of any other neighbors of Mr. Tellis who had been spoken to concerning their Ring cameras or their security systems that could have gotten you closer to the Tellis home?
I am aware that other detectives canvassed the area for surveillance video, and I don't believe we were able to locate any.
But you can't say for certain, can you?
Well, I can say that if video would have been recovered, it would have been given to me to be used as part of the PowerPoint that I created.
But again, and just so we're clear, and if I may approach this screen, I mean, we've got the Piggott Elementary School here. That's where the green pen is, correct?
Yes, sir.
And we have the Tellis home up here, a ways away on the other side of Spanish Steps, correct?
Correct.
So you said it was right around the corner, but it's actually really not. You'd have to leave Piggott Elementary School, come over here on Red Hills, drive up Red Hills, let's see, Silk Tassel, hit Spanish Steps, And from this video, from this picture, we can't really see, but we don't really have the entrance to Mr. Tellis's neighborhood captured, do we?
So where I lose track of the Denali is about 6 houses south of the intersection, and then right around the corner to Mr. Teaz's residence.
Would you agree with me, just based upon this capture, and this presumably is from a satellite?
The picture of this?
Yes.
Yes, it's Google Earth.
We've got quite a few homes. We've got that silk tassel drive. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 on one side, 6 on the other. Then we have Spanish steps. We have homes on each side. There's a lot of homes there, isn't there, that could have security cameras?
There were, but not every home has security cameras, and just because you have a camera doesn't mean that it captures anything.
Kind of like in the instance of Mr. Tellis's home. Just because there's a camera, that doesn't mean anything was captured, correct?
That's correct.
But fair to say, we do have several homes between this Piggott vantage point and the Tellis home.
There are several, yes.
You had given testimony concerning seeing a red Denali drive by from a certain vantage point, and you weren't able to see whether or not it had a plate, correct?
That's correct.
Do you recall which capture you were referring to?
I believe that was from 1405 Wintergreen, and there was no plate visible on the back of the truck at the time that it drove northbound on Wintergreen.
And what time was that?
I don't recall off the top of my head.
Would referring to your notes or your slide preparation refresh your recollection?
If you want to back out of this and go to the PowerPoint itself, and then I have to scroll down to the slides.
Okay, I'll do this. We'll go through it together.
So it's that angle.
Right here?
No, not this, but it's this angle from 1405 Wintergreen.
Not that one?
No, sir.
That's Mr. Tellis. I'm sorry, that's Mr. Gehrman. Let's see. And you know, since we're here in the interest of time, let's address this. You were asked, did something jump out at you? Recall that line of questioning yesterday?
Correct.
And you were shown this in State's Exhibit 317. Mr. Hamner had shown this to the jury, correct?
Yes.
We have a visor down in the summertime on a vehicle, correct?
That's correct.
And you'd said there was something telling, something very characteristic about this capture, correct?
There's one of them, yes.
And we'll get to the other matters, but you said something here on the front just showed you that this must be the same vehicle or similar to the vehicle, correct?
It stood out to me as something that was similar on both the suspect's vehicle and on Mr. Teaz's vehicle.
And if I can show you what's been admitted and shown, published, State's Exhibit 317.
Yes.
Let me approach. This was it, correct?
That's correct.
And you said in your testimonies that there's something here that matches something there concerning this light colored area?
Correct. It's just something that drew my attention on both vehicles. And it's a faded area on the plastic of the left front of the Denali.
But then again, this faded area, the sun's reflecting off of it, isn't it?
I don't believe the sun was reflecting off of that.
I would submit that the exhibit will speak for itself. If I told you that it is, do you have any reason to disagree with me?
That the sun is reflecting off of that?
Yes.
I would.
Okay, well, obviously, too, we'll let those that are the ultimate determiners of fact to determine that. There was other testimony concerning things jumping out at you. The rims on the Denali.
Correct.
These are stock rims, aren't they?
They are.
The tinting in the front, lighter tinting in the front, darker tinting in the back. Something else?
That's correct, when you take everything into consideration.
But that's a standard feature, is it not? The front windows are generally not tinted and the backs are.
That's not true.
Have you done research concerning the 2007 Denali?
I've seen Denali's. I've seen tinted windows in the front, tinted windows all the way around, no tint all the way around, some windows tinted, some windows not. It runs the gamut. It depends on the owner of the vehicle on whether or not you want to tint your windows.
Have you done any research in reference to like Car Guru or CarMax, Google, concerning 2007 Denali's, what they
I
look
have.
like? Fairly similar to this one.
Similar, yes.
They all have Denali on the side like this Denali has, correct?
They do.
Now, moving forward, please stop me when we come to the capture, I think was the word used, in reference to the license plate.
So if you play this clip,
Okay?
stop.
Right there.
Yes.
All right. Oh,
That's on cornflower. That's another angle where you do not see a license plate on the rear of the vehicle.
okay. And this is at 1042, correct?
Yes, sir.
This is some distance from the Telus home, correct?
It's about a block.
Now let's hit that. About a block from the Telus home?
No, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It's about a block from Mr. Gehrman's residence.
Okay.
It's roughly 5.3 miles from Mr. Tejas' residence.
All right. So we've got a red Denali about an hour and 30 minutes away from the other Denali that's captured at Piggott, that's some distance away from the Telus home, correct?
I believe this time is correct. You'd have to go to the slide before for me to confirm that. It is.
Okay. So again, about an hour and a half.
Correct.
We've got a 5.3 mile stretch. And you'll agree with me that we don't have continuous coverage, do we? We have 20 spots, give or take, over a 5.3 mile area. Fair to say?
That's correct. Again, some houses had video, some didn't. Some captured the vehicle, some didn't. Some weren't recording, some were.
And it's your testimony that this capture is at 1042, correct? Give or take, assuming it's accurate.
Yes, sir.
And I'll go forward now to 1405 Winter Green.
So I believe that one also shows that there was no plate on the back of the vehicle.
Okay, and this is 17 minutes after the last one?
Yes, correct.
And this is all in the area of Mr. Gehrman's home, correct?
This is on Wintergreen, about 30 feet north of Bronze Circle where Mr. Gehrman lived.
So we've got all this time that's transpired, correct?
Minutes.
Well, if we go from 1042 to 1101, I mean, we've got some time. Almost 20 minutes.
Well, that's also the suspect out walking around the area.
Okay, we've got 20 minutes that we've gone by, correct?
Sure.
Fair to say that this video window that we've been looking at begins at about 9:10, correct? Concerning the Denali. I don't want to say it's Mr. Tellis' Denali, but a Denali, correct?
That's correct.
And one of the latter slides that we look at, it's about 11:50, isn't it?
Approximately, yes.
That's a fair amount of time, correct?
It is.
Turning your attention to a Denali, a red Denali. Did you receive information that there was about 67 red Denalis in the Vegas area?
There's actually more than that. We had an initial listing, I believe, over 100. Of that 100, one of the Denalis listed on there was registered at Mr. Tejas' residence to his wife, Mary. We further narrowed that list down to red Yukons. The first list was 07 to 14 Yukons. The next list that we narrowed down was 07 to 2014 red Yukons. Again, Mr. Tejas' wife, Mary, at his address was listed on that list. We narrowed it down even further then to red Denalis. And again, Mr. Tejas' wife, Mary, at his address was listed as an owner of that vehicle. We even searched advanced license plate readers, and Mr. Tejas' vehicle was photographed by an advanced license plate reader vehicle at his residence, bearing a license plate, a Nevada commemorative plate. I believe it was 944 Adam.
Okay, and when was this?
I don't know what the exact date was, but I could get it.
Okay, so you don't have it today. I mean, I appreciate you laying out for us the steps of this investigation, but when was this capture done? When was this? Please, tell us.
I could get it for you.
Okay. Have you given it to the state?
I believe everybody has the license plate reader information.
We don't know when, the origin? I mean, as you sit here today, and trust me, it's not a test, but I mean, you don't have it with you.
I do have it with me. I just don't know that my computer is going to work in here.
Okay, fair enough. Fair to say, though, there's more than one Denali, and we're talking about a 5.3 mile area that you were focusing on, correct?
There is more than one Denali in the Clark County Valley.
At no point in time, and you'd agree with me that it's your theory, but at no point in time do we have any capture of a red Denali parked and there's a license plate being either removed or put upon it, correct?
There's not.
Most of the captures that we have of this red Denali, you don't really see a plate one way or the other, do you?
No, that's not correct.
Okay.
You don't see the plate as it's traveling around Mr. Gurman's neighborhood. Once it goes down Washington, you can tell that there is something on the back of the vehicle that was not there before.
And if you could direct our attention to which slide specifically you're referring to.
Yes, if you can pull up the one that's on Washington.
Okay, so it's forward from this, looking at the time.
Correct. It's near the end.
The one that's taken from the gas station.
No.
Okay.
The one that's taken from the backyard of a residence that backs up to Washington. And then also from the Winco Foods on Washington.
Okay. Please tell me when I should stop.
Right there. So where the red box was, if you look, you can see white and darker. And I believe that is the commemorative license plate that was on the back of the vehicle.
But that's as good as we get. You're saying that that's the one that belongs to the Telus residence, but that's it. You're drawing this conclusion based upon this image.
Oh, no. I was present for the execution of a search warrant at Mr. Tejas' residence, where several items of evidence were recovered that absolutely confirmed my belief that Mr. Tejas' vehicle was the one used in the commission of Jeffrey Gurman's murder.
And we understand that, and we understand your point of view in reference to this, but concerning this vehicle, this capture at 11:35, at 11:35 Sunspot Street at 11:35 in the morning, you're basing this conclusion concerning this commemorative plate and that this is the vehicle based upon that image.
What I'm saying is that when the vehicle was last photographed at 7200 Periwinkle, as it turned west onto Vegas Drive, the next video that I have, or the next capture I have of the vehicle, is as it travels westbound on Washington from Tenaya. And at that point, it appears to me that there's a license plate on the vehicle.
So you're saying there's a better image of the plate capture than this concerning these putting onto the plate than this what we're looking at?
There is no image of the license plate being put back on the vehicle.
But I'm asking concerning the image of the plate.
If you go to the next one, I believe, from Winco Foods, and again, you can look at the back of that. Now you can clearly see that there is a white area on the rear lift gate.
And that's the commemorative plate that you've testified concerning.
The previous one is what I thought it was,
All
just
right.
based on the color scheme, what it looked like.
You see something there, and that's this commemorative plate that you're sure belongs to the Tellus vehicle.
No, in this video or in this clip, all I'm saying is now it appears that there is a license plate on the vehicle.
And in reference to the license plate that you're testifying is on this vehicle, you can't tell what kind of plate it is.
You cannot.
Thank you. No further questions.
Court is ordered. Based on that exam, we have no further.
Okay. Thank you very much for your testimony here today. You step down and you're excused from your subpoena. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, can we approach?
Sure.
Can I still go here?
Can the witness still leave?
Oh, yes.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Okay, at this time, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to recess for lunch. We don't have our next witness coming until 1 o'clock. And so during this recess, you're admonished not to discuss or communicate with anyone, including your fellow jurors, in any way regarding the case or its merits, either by voice, phone, email, text, internet, or means of communication, or social media. Read, watch, or listen to any news or media accounts or commentary about the case. Do research, consult dictionaries, internet, or reference materials. Do any investigation, test a theory, recreate any aspect of the case, or in any other way investigate or learn about the case on your own, or form or express any opinion regarding the case until it's finally submitted to you. Thank you. You go with the officer of the court, and we will be in recess.
Thank you. All right, for next meeting, Thank you. Can you please be seated? Please come to order. Remain seated.
Okay, does the state stipulate to the presence of the panel?
Yes, Your Honor.
And the defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay, you may call your next witness.
The state's going to call Dr. Stephanie Dowdy to stand. Dr.
If you'll remain standing, raise your right hand, face the clerk.
You do solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give in this action shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes, I do.
You may be seated. Please state and spell your first and last name for the record.
First name is Stephanie, Stephanie. Last name Yagi, Yagi.
Thank you very much. If you could you please explain to the jury what you do for a living?
I'm currently employed as a medical examiner at the Clark County Coroner's Office.
How long have you been with the Clark County Coroner's Office?
About 2 years.
If you could, please, and what is your title?
Medical examiner and forensic pathologist.
If you could explain to the jury, what is a medical examiner?
So a medical examiner is a medical doctor who specializes in determining the cause and manner of death.
If you could, please describe your educational background for the jury.
So I am a medical doctor. After graduating from medical school, I did 4 additional years in residency training in anatomic and clinical pathology, and 1 additional year in subspecialized training in forensic pathology. And I'm board certified in anatomic, clinical, and forensic pathology.
After finishing your schooling, where did you go professionally from that point? Was it to the Clark County Coroner's Office or was it somewhere else?
Yes, after training, I went directly to the Clark County Coroner's Office.
All right. On average, how many autopsies do you perform a year?
Approximately 250.
Okay. If you could, describe what is the purpose of an autopsy?
The purpose is going to be to determine the cause and manner of death in any sudden, unexpected, violent, or suspicious deaths.
All right. Are there categories that help define potential manners of death?
Yes.
How many are there? At least within your office, how many are there?
So there are 5.
Okay, and please tell us each one.
So there's going to be natural, accident, suicide, homicide, and in cases where we cannot tell, undetermined.
Okay. Did you perform the autopsy on an individual by the name of Jeffrey Michael Gehrman?
Yes.
Okay, and that was performed on September 4th of 2022?
Yes.
If you could, explain a little bit about how Mr. Gehrman's body is transported to your office.
In cases like these where it is a suspicious or violent death, the body is transported in a sealed body bag, either from the scene or the hospital, wherever death is pronounced. It is then transported to our office, and that seal is not broken until the forensic processing takes place in the presence of law enforcement.
Who are the individuals that put that body in a sealed bag for transport to your office?
Those would be our coroner investigators.
Okay, so not someone affiliated with Metro, but actually employees from your office.
Correct.
When Mr. Gehrman's body arrived in your office, was it in that sealed bag?
Yes.
Did you notice any sort of tampering with the seal in any way?
No.
Okay. So after you, let's say, open a seal of someone you're about to perform an autopsy on, what's the next step?
So every step of this process is photo documented. Again, a photograph of the sealed body bag is taken, as well as a tote tag with identifying coroner case number. The body is then photographed as is, or as it comes out of the body bag, and then processing takes place in layers. So if a body is clothed, the clothes are taken off, and again, photographs are taken. If the body is dirty, it is then cleaned, and then again, photographs are taken.
Is there a process of taking fingernail or toenail clippings from a body?
In certain cases, yes.
In this case, was that performed?
I don't recall.
Okay. If that is actually performed, when does that typically happen in the process?
Again, during the processing portion of the autopsy.
And so that's the beginning part where you're photographing and things like that before you get to, for example, cutting and going into the body. Would that be fair?
Yes.
Okay. So after you take photographs of the body with clothing on, and then remove the clothing, and then you get to cleaning the body, what is the next step for a medical examiner like yourself?
So the autopsy examination occurs in multiple steps. The first step is going to be an external examination. So I'm just looking at the body, documenting, identifying features such as hair color, eye color, scars, tattoos. as well as any external trauma that I can see on the body.
Okay. So you kind of go from head to toe and you're marking things externally on the body. What would be the next phase of the autopsy?
The next step is going to be the internal examination. So this portion is somewhat likened to a surgical procedure where the body is opened, the internal organs are taken out, they are evaluated as well as weighed, again documenting any sequelae of natural disease one might have as well as any injuries.
Is there a phase that continues after an internal examination?
There are additional ancillary studies that we can perform that are included as part of the autopsy examination, things like toxicology testing, histologic or microscopic examination if necessary, or any type of other consultations that we see fit.
Okay. Were those things performed in this case?
In this case, toxicology testing was performed.
But not a histological one?
Correct.
And that's essentially when you're looking at tissue underneath. You take slides of tissue and look at under a microscope. Would that be correct?
Yes.
Okay. Were any radiographs or MRIs taken of the body?
Postmortem radiographs or x-rays were taken in our office of the body.
Okay. And so that was done in this case?
Correct.
All right. Now, at this time, I'd like to approach with what has been admitted by stipulation, Your Honor, states 188 through states 203.
That's correct.
May I approach the witness? All right. Let the record reflect I'm showing the witness states 188 through 203. Please take a moment, doctor. Take a moment to flip through those and let me know if these look familiar to you.
Yes.
Okay. What are we looking at here?
In general, these are going to be photographs from the forensic processing portion as well as autopsy examination for this particular case.
Thank you very much. At this time, permission to publish.
You may.
Publishing states 188. Who are we looking at here?
So this is a facial identification photograph of the decedent, Mr. German.
Okay. I think it's pronounced Garman, but that's
apologize.
okay. It's okay. How old was Mr. Garman?
I don't recall.
Would it help refresh your recollection to see a copy of your autopsy report?
Yes.
Okay, referring to page 1, counsel. Just read silently here, these 2 lines here, and let me know if that refreshes your memory.
Yes, it does.
Okay. So let me ask you again. How old was Mr. Garman at the time of his death?
69 years.
Okay. So this is kind of an external view of him. Is that correct?
Yes.
Now, for the purposes of your external examination, you noted a series of injuries. We'll come back to this, but I want to first start with publishing 189. What are we looking at here?
This is an overall photograph of the anterior or front portion of the body.
Okay. I want to talk first about his neck. Did you note externally an injury sustained to Mr. Garman's neck?
Yes.
What type of wound was it? Where was it on the neck?
There are actually 2 sharp force injuries of the neck, more specifically 2 incised wounds of the anterior and left lateral aspects of the neck.
Okay. Let's take the incised wound to the anterior of the neck. If you could, please explain to the jury, what does the word incised mean?
So an incised wound is a category of sharp force injury, which is an injury created by something with a blade or cutting edge. An incised wound, by definition, is longer on the skin than it is deep within the body. And by contrast, we have stab wounds, which are going to be the opposite. They're going to be deeper into the body than the length on the skin.
So a stab wound essentially could be someone plunging some sharp object into a body versus slicing across.
It could be, yes.
Okay. I want to publish Exhibit 197. What are we looking at here?
So this is the incised wound to the anterior neck previously discussed.
Do you know what the term wound track means?
Yes.
What does it mean?
In my opinion, it is the path that the injury is involving, so specific tissues and or objects that are involved in said wound.
If you could, please explain to us, based on your examination of Mr. Gehrman, tell us about the wound track of this particular incised wound to the anterior of his neck.
So this wound involved obviously the skin and underlying or subcutaneous tissues. It also produced defects in the larynx, which is part of the respiratory tract, and the carotid artery, which is a main artery that supplies blood to the brain.
If you could, please explain to us what sort of damage receiving a wound like this to your larynx could do to a person.
It could make it difficult to breathe.
And tell me about the carotid artery. Why is that such a significant artery in the body?
It is the main blood supply to the brain.
And what happens if the brain, I know this may seem like a silly question, but please, doctor, tell us, what would happen to a person if their body could not get blood to their brain?
They suffer things like anoxia, which is lack of oxygen. The brain controls many, if not all, of the functions of our body.
Is this injury, based on your medical training and experience, potentially fatal?
Yes.
Do you believe, based on your examination, this was one of the fatal injuries?
Yes.
Publishing Exhibit 198. What part of the body are we looking at now, doctor?
This is the left lateral or left aspect of the neck.
Is there an injury that you denoted here that you memorialized in your report?
Yes, there is a small incised wound.
You know what? If you take your mouse, I believe it should, if you could take the mouse and maybe point to us, where is that second incised wound?
So it's going to be right here.
Okay. So let the record reflect that the witness has circled what appears to be a small incision almost in the center of the photo on the left side of his neck. If you could, what was the wound track result here?
It was relatively superficial, involving only the skin and some subcutaneous tissues.
And so superficial meaning it didn't go too deeply. Would that be correct?
Correct.
In layman's terms, sorry. Let's talk, was there another wound on the left side of the neck? Republishing 198.
No.
Did you indicate at some point that there was a stab wound to the left posterior of the neck?
Yes.
Do you see that here in this photograph?
No.
Okay. But one is noted, is that correct?
Yes.
And let me do this. The lighting's not great either, so let me at least approach and you look at it. I don't know if I'm right or wrong, but let me see. If you look at it up close here, can you see it at all?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's republish it, and then you can circle it for us. Publishing 198. Please show us where the wound is to the left posterior neck.
Is there any way to make it lighter?
You know, we can try. That seems low. That seems a little bit too much, but let's. How about that? Seems pretty good. Is that good? Better, doctor?
Yes.
Okay. And I can zoom in too. So why don't I zoom in a little bit more? All right. So can you please tell us where another injury was noted on the left posterior neck?
Yes, it's going to be right here.
All right. Let the record reflect that the witness has noted another, what appears to almost look like a perforating injury to the back part of his neck. And just in layman's terms, posterior means what?
The back.
Okay. Anterior means what?
The front.
And lateral means what?
On the side.
Okay. What was the wound track on that injury, that third injury?
The injury of the left posterior neck was also involving the skin and subcutaneous tissues.
Okay. And did it also touch on some of the superficial muscles?
Yes.
What sort of What sort of injury or effect does that have on a person?
It could be variable.
It could be what?
Oh, variable?
Okay. Let's Was there another injury that you had denoted to the right posterior neck?
Yes.
Okay, what type of injury was that?
It was considered a stab wound.
Okay. What was the wound track on that injury?
Again, this wound involved the skin, subcutaneous muscles, and soft tissues.
Okay. I might circle back to that one. I want to talk about the torso for a moment. Was there an injury to the lateral side, the left lateral side of his torso?
Yes, there are 2 stab wounds to the left lateral torso.
Okay. I'm publishing, going to publish Exhibit 190. Do you see the general area where you denoted those injuries?
Yes.
Okay, if you could, why don't you show us with your, and actually, you know what I can do too? I can have an enlargement here. I'm going to publish 195. Just a bit. Where on the left side of Mr. Gehrman is there another injury?
So there's a stab wound here, and there's actually also one here behind this arm.
Okay. Let me publish 196. Is this a better view
Yes.
of at least one of those injuries?
Yes.
Okay. Tell me, the stab wound to the left lateral torso, what was the wound track on that? What damage did this injury do?
Of which stab wound?
The one to the left lateral torso, the one closer to the rib cage.
Can you be more specific?
You denote in your report that there's a sharp injury number 5.
So there are 2 stab wounds of the lateral torso. One is more superior or higher up on the chest, while the other one is more midline chest.
Let's talk about the higher up one.
So the more superior stab wound of the left lateral torso involved, again, the skin and subcutaneous tissues, the thoracic cage or ribs, the left lung, as well as the heart and aorta, which is the main blood supply to the body.
What damage did this stab wound do to the upper lobe of the lung?
So it punctured the upper lobe of the left lung.
What sort of damage could that create in a person?
Could be variable.
Okay, we'll give you some examples, doctor.
Well, my specialty training is not clinical medicine, so my patient population is somewhat biased. However, it could result in trouble breathing. It could result in blood within the chest cavity, and it could result in death.
Okay. You mentioned what damage to, was it, I don't know if you testified to this, but did this injury also touch the pericardium?
Yes.
What is the pericardium?
The pericardium is the sac that surrounds the heart.
What sort of damage could that cause to a person if their pericardium is pierced?
On its own, could be nothing.
Okay. Tell me about, was there any, did this wound penetrate the heart in any way?
Yes.
What did it hit?
I believe it hit one of the atria of the lung, or sorry, atria of the heart.
Okay. Did you note that it had hit the right ventricle as well as the aorta?
I would have to refresh my recollection.
Sure. Referring to page 3, counsel.
Thank you.
Does that refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. So tell me about this injury. What parts of the heart did this stab wound affect on the heart?
It resulted in injury to the right ventricle of the heart.
Okay. What is the role of the right ventricle?
It is one of the pumping chambers of the heart.
Okay. What can happen to a person if their right ventricle is damaged?
their function to pump blood to the body may become impaired.
Can that injury be potentially fatal?
Yes.
In your opinion, based on your examination here, was this one of the potential fatal injury, or was this one of the fatal injuries suffered by Mr. Dearman?
Yes.
Let's talk about the aorta. What is significant about the aorta? What role does it play?
It is one of the main vessels that leads from the heart to the rest of the body.
Okay. If that portion of if that valve or portion of the heart is damaged, how can that affect a person?
Blood could be impaired to the rest of the body.
In your opinion, based on your training and medical experience, was this another one of the fatal injuries to Mr. Dearman?
It could be, yes.
Let's talk about the lower injury to the left lateral torso. I'm republishing 195. If you could show us, I don't know if the lighting's great on that, but if you could show us, where is that injury?
Can you repeat which injury you're speaking
The
of?
lower left lateral injury to the torso.
It's going to be this one down here.
Okay, let the record reflect that the witness has circled an injury to the left of the hand that's holding up a ruler in the photograph. Would that be accurate, doctor?
Yes.
If you could, please tell me about the wound track for this particular wound.
This wound involved the skin and subcutaneous tissues as well as the hemidiaphragm and the kidney.
Okay. And what sort of damage can that cause to the body?
The diaphragm is responsible for helping a person breathe, and the kidney is responsible for waste production.
Okay. What sort of effect can that have on the body if you sustain an injury such as that?
Which injury?
You can take them in order. I apologize. We can start with the hemidiaphragm if you wish.
Could lead to trouble breathing.
Okay. How about to the helium of the left kidney?
The hilum of the kidney compromises multiple different constituents of the kidney, including major vessels, as well as the renal pelvis, which then leads to the bladder. Injury to this area could result in hemorrhage or bleeding.
All right. Was there, and this was what type of wound? An incised wound, a stab wound?
This was a stab wound.
All right. Was there a third injury to the left lateral torso?
Not that I recall.
Okay. Would it help refresh your recollection if I refer to page 3 of your report?
Yes.
Okay. Page 3. Does this help refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Was there a third injury that you had noted to the left side of Mr. Dearman's torso?
No.
Okay. Do you recall at least denoting that in your report?
The report denotes a left posterior torso wound, which is the back of the body.
Okay, but Doc, let me just approach I just want to make sure I'm getting my numbers correct. You had indicated previously there was a left lateral injury that hit the hemidiaphragm and the hilum. Is that correct?
Yes.
In your report, do you note that as 7 or 6?
Number 7 is denoted as left lateral torso, and then number 6 is left posterior torso. It appears from the report, and my apologies, the left posterior torso wound is the wound that perforates the diaphragm and hilum of the kidney.
Okay, so posterior means back?
Back.
Okay, so there's an injury, so just so we're clear, on his left back, there's an injury. It's a stab wound, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and those are the ones that perforated the hemidiaphragm and the hilum?
Correct.
Okay, so that's one. We haven't seen that in the picture. You denoted the second lateral one, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay, and the damage with respect to that left lateral torso, was that more superficial in nature?
Yes, it involved only the skin and subcutaneous soft tissues.
Okay. want to show you Exhibit 193.
More continuing coverage in the Las Vegas reporter murder trial of Robert Tellez is on the way. From the Hidden Killers podcast and True Crime Today, press subscribe now.